Welcome back. Auto theft is on the rise in Canada, up 45% in Toronto alone to more than 6,000 cars stolen so far this year. Technology is at least part of the key to the jump in stolen cars, and it may also be the solution. Michael Slack is Director of Ontario and the Atlantic Regions for Equite Association. Michael, great to have you with us.
Thanks very much for having me.
So let's start with kind of the big picture here and characterize it. It sounds like a shocking number, 6,000 cars. How does that compare to what we've seen historically?
Well, that's a significant rise. Obviously, you mentioned the percentage. So if you look at Ontario alone, 6,000 cars, you look in the Greater Toronto area, in Toronto's numbers up 45%. So those are significant increase in the trend of theft of vehicles. Do we know why? What's driving this? Well, we believe that a lot of the drive is obviously demand. So there is the theory in around that increase is that most of these vehicles, a large portion of them, are being exported out of the country. We are not recovering vehicles in Ontario at the same rate that we would recover them in other provinces or in other regions. So the belief is the reason we're not recovering them is because they're being exported out of the country. And from what we hear from our foreign partners, that certainly holds true. So it's a demand outside of the country for our vehicles, and unfortunately, Canada is that supply for those vehicles. And people can actually look up and see, what are the most stolen cars. I think Honda CR-V is at the top of the list, but there's a whole bunch of them that people might want to know if that's what they've got in their driveway. It's a target. How does technology play into this? Is it our key fob? Is it that they can bypass the actual startup system? How are they getting the cars? Yeah, so the technologies that we all love, those technologies that make it very convenient for us to walk up to our car without removing our keys from our pocket or from our purse, unfortunately, those same technologies can make those vehicles vulnerable. And even as manufacturers look to close those vulnerabilities, the groups that are involved in this trend are very sophisticated and very capable of overcoming some of those technologies. Is there a technological solution for us? Is there something that people can buy to protect themselves? There's a number of things that we can do. Primarily, it's not necessarily even technology. Some of it is our old way of thinking. As we approach winter, you're going to see an increase in warm-up thefts. So a lot of these vehicles are going to be stolen that way. But clearly, whether you're looking at what we would call relay thefts, or where you're walking away and locking your doors from a distance with your key fob, that technology makes it more vulnerable. So there are some things you can purchase to assist in that. You can make sure that your keys are stored in a something like a Verde bag that prevents the code from being released. But also GPS tracking devices, alarm systems for your car, technology around your house, such as camera systems, lighting systems, all of that. That layered approach is really what needs to happen. Just quickly here, we know there was a shortage of chips for cars, and therefore there was a shortage of production of some vehicles. That may have driven up demand globally. Can we hope that as supply chains get back to normal, our cars become a little less attractive? That certainly would make sense, right? So certainly globally, it's more difficult, it's less difficult to obtain a car. Certainly, we hope that our cars will be less attractive. So good to have you with us, Michael. Appreciate it. Well, thanks for having me. Michael Slack is Director of Ontario and the Atlantic Regions for Equite Association. Time for the takeaway, and when a simple thing is hiding a mountain of complexity. When it comes to credit cards, most of us have learned to love them. And what's not to like? It's an unsecured loan, free for 30 days, that gives us freedom and flexibility to make purchases when we want. Of course, in practice, they're a bit less magical. Those unsecured loans become the priciest debt we have if they aren't paid off in full, and often become a burden for users who get trapped in a cycle of minimum payments and extremely high rates of interest. But there's another hidden cost to credit cards that this week was at least partially dragged into view. When we use credit cards, the merchant we buy from has to pay a fee. And the fancier our card with loyalty points or other benefits, the higher that fee. Now, thanks to a class action lawsuit, merchants will be allowed to pass on some of those costs to us, up to a maximum of 2.4% of the transaction. The big question will be how many retailers actually do it.
It makes the retailer the bad guy in this equation when actually they're the hapless middleman. To avoid an unpleasant conversation with their customers, retailers may just do what they do now, and that's bury the cost of these fees in the price of their products. The problem there, of course, is that means products get more expensive for everyone, not just those who use credit cards. For years, this inequity has meant some people benefit by using a costly loyalty card, while others get no benefit from paying with cash or debt. My takeaway? Allowing retailers to pass on a cost to customers may be a small step in the right direction by increasing transparency on a hidden fee. But let's not mistake it for a solution to a problem that costs us all. That's Taking Stock for this week. I'm Amanda Lang. Thanks for being with us.